welcome to my classroom. This is my classroom, where I spend 8 hours a day during each day of the school year. I teach high school science in an alternative school in Denver, Colorado. The subjects that I teach are earth science, chemistry, and a course called integrated science, which is a course that I made up. It's really engineering and the nature of science. It's an introductory course. My classroom is exceptionally small because I teach in an alternative school. In total, we have 4 lab tables, each of which can seat 4 students. So in general, my class sizes are always somewhere below 19. All right, let me show you around each of the most relevant parts of this room. I've spent a few years building and engineering to be as productive as possible for my workflow and my students as well. As you walk in the door, you are greeted with a very simple sign and a lab table turned on its side. This is where I place papers each morning for each class each day, so that way when students walk in, the first thing they see is the thing that they need to grab. Right above that is something I'm pretty proud of. This is the What is Due board. It's a really simple thumbtack board where each week my assignments are due on Friday. Sometimes Thursday if we don't have school Friday, but they're always due Friday. 1 week for every assignment and when it's due. But to make things easier, what I do is take a copy of one of those assignments and I pin it straight to the board so students can see every week a physical copy of what is due and when. This puts the accountability of getting things turned in on time onto the students as it should be. And reasonably, right below the What is Due board is the turn-in bins for each of my class periods. Each of these is labeled with one of the freshman courses that I teach from 3rd period to 7th period. And the idea is that it acts similar to a ballot box. Once you turn your paper in, it is to stay in there and not come back out. This is so that way students never worry about their papers being lost or someone possibly taking their paper. Again, the focus is on putting the accountability and responsibility onto the kids while also building trust and security in the systems that operate in my room. After that, we have the main stage, the 4 lab benches situated in the center of my room. This is where students sit freely. I don't really do assigned seats, and you can put the chairs wherever you have to. And here we have my desk, where I sit a lot of the time. I have a lot of energy, but I'm also a very tired and exhausted teacher, so I do spend time here often. An interesting note about this school is that before it was an alternative school, it was a bank that was then refurbished into an actual school. And the desks are part of the wall and not facing the actual students, which is awful. So most of my desk has me sitting sort of to the side so that way I can see everyone and make sure no one's dying or anything. Now that I've covered the more broad parts of my room and just its overall design, I want to talk about the more specific things that are in my room that I use to do my teaching and that make this less of a classroom and more of a workspace and workshop for my students. I will reference, just for posterity, what things in this room were bought with school money, grant money, or my own personal money, because each of those categories exists in this room. To start, I have the unnecessary gaming PC that I use as my main workstation. I have my monitor as well. And then I have my general recording gear for making the video lectures that I use in my classroom. The camera, the microphone, those are both grant money that I applied for, and I got them with that. The light and the amplifier are both mine. Those belong to me. The gaming PC, the recording cameras I use in this room, those are all mine. The keyboard's mine. Most of the setup is mine. But I genuinely do use this. It's not uncommon for me to use a video game or a simulation or something like Universe Sandbox in my classroom. Having actual computational power is actually worth it for at least me and my workflow, especially with the fact that I'm making and rendering videos for my classroom as well. So the standard school laptop just was not going to cut it. Now, over here is something I'm actually very lucky to have. This is an actual fume hood that fumigates and takes things out of the room whenever I want to set something on fire. Here we have access to natural gas as well as a couple of plugs, so that way we can run things like hot plates. Just below this is some of my chemical storage and also where I store anything that produces heat or fire. I want to keep those things all in the same place. There are alternative schools that don't have any way, shape, or form of doing anything involving combustion or gases in their classroom. So I'm actually very lucky to have this, and I use it very often because of that. Notice the distillation apparatus. I just don't take it down. It takes too long to put together, and I don't want to take it apart. So that just sits there, and we use it surprisingly often. Over here is the space that I think I'm the most proudest of. This back area was completely blank once I got to this school. This is the tool bench, per se. Almost every item here was bought with grant money that I applied for and was awarded. This is an Ender 3 V2 3D printer. This is where I store extra tools, and these are fire-resistant hoods that I use to keep the 3D printers running that when I'm not here, just for the sake of safety. It was a requirement for getting approval to have them in my room at all. Below this is extra power tools and spots for just keeping random things organized, hardware, things like that. In this one, we have 2 large mechanic-style toolkits, as well as some drill bits and miscellaneous things. We build things in my classroom often, whether it's me demonstrating building things or having students actually build things themselves. I use these materials really freaking often. But again, yeah, this is school money, grant money. All of this is grant money. This bench is mine. I had to go buy it myself. All right, and this is definitely one of the cool spots in my whole room. This is our south-facing window, for which we are using to grow all of our control plants for environmental science experiments. These are a control group of sun gold cherry tomato plants that we're using to refer back to when spring hits and we start growing them experimentally ourselves. So my students help me tend to and water these throughout the school year. The gallon jug milk method works pretty good. Each of these are definitely in too small of a volume of soil, but we're going to keep it consistent for our experiments. This is a grow light that I bought myself from the thrift store. The soil is all just soil left over from another grant that I wrote. Down here below, this is what's holding up our seedling trays right now. This is just a lot of miscellaneous things. This is a 3D printed shake table that I made. We also have a VR headset. It's an Oculus, like an original Oculus Rift S, I think. We use this for 3D simulations during our space science unit. So I take them into the Universe Sandbox video game, which is powered on that personal PC of mine, and then I have the kids actually simulate lots of different situations in space using that VR headset, and it's just a really good and engaging experience. I also have a bunch of video game controllers, because whenever there's true downtime, we emulate like Mario Kart 64 or something on the school computer, and we put it up on the projector, and it's pretty dope. I put all of my extra scales here. We have a bunch of extra little terracotta pots for starting seeds. And this gray bin down here is sort of like the photovoltaic and solar situation. This has inverters and Arduinos and just a lot of electronics for like automating growing spaces. I just keep that here so that way those things are in one place. I almost missed this corner. This is pretty cool. This is a wall of what I call labs in a bag. Each of these bags contains a Windows laptop, an Arduino, and a programmable robot. The Windows laptop was actually spent with my money. I couldn't get a grant for it for some dumb reason. The robot and the sensor and the Arduino are all grant money. So some of it's my money, some of it's the school money. I had to thrift all of these bags myself. There's 1 bag per table group in my classroom. So when we are doing something with robotics or maybe trying to automate something in our greenhouse, we bring out these bags, we pull up the Windows laptop, and we can code on them. We can use them for a lot more complicated things than the school Chromebooks. I love these things. The wall hangers are actually 3D printed on the 3D printer that I got with grant money, which is pretty neat. There's our safety shower. Don't touch it. I've done the math. If it is pooled for some dumb reason or some valid reason, the cone of water will not ruin the labs in a bags, which is great. Down there are the solar panels. We have 3 solar panels that we use throughout the school year. You can see them down there. These solar panels, I think each of them is 100 watts or so. They're classic 12 volt, which is really like 14 volt solar panels. 18 volt? Don't know. But they're 12 volt solar panels. We use these for different projects throughout the school year, especially as we get into like the April-ish types of month. We start using these a lot more, and they are used with other things in my classroom as well. All right, and over here in this corner is the home base for our Robo 3D printers. This was a grant that I believe the entire state of Colorado, maybe all of Denver public schools, this was a grant that was written for like more STEM stuff in alternative schools and also just traditional public schools too. So this is grant money coming from top down that I didn't even apply for. These just showed up one day, which happened to be perfect because I'm already someone who does a lot of 3D modeling and 3D printing in my classroom. Beneath this is where all of our laboratory sensors are. I would say of everything that was sort of just given to me, those are the best. They measure a bajillion different types of things. I don't really know anything about their price because, it was a grant that was just kind of given to me. They was just kind of dropped off at our school one day. These sensors are huge. They really enable a lot of good scientific work. Now, interestingly, there is a Chromebook application for the graphing software for these sensors. It doesn't work well, so I had to go get those Windows laptop computers instead. I love these printers. They really work well. Thank you for joining me on the literal ground. Here we have 2 folding like picnic tables. On these I have 4 grow lights, and this is where students start seeds and then transition them into their first intermediate pots as gallon milk jugs. Now, over here is my students' most recently started sets of seeds. They're doing pretty good. They get lots of light. I can run it on a timer. And then over there, we slowly transition them into these larger pots so the plants have more room to grow. I have no idea if this is fire code safe. Don't be a snitch. Nah, but for real, don't worry. I designed these pretty intentionally because I wanted to make sure anything wet would be near the floor and not dripping onto anything below it. So these are located low, down to the ground. That's very much on purpose. It's also a really good use of space because, as you can see, all the stuff above it, that's all of our extra soil, extra seedling trays, all kinds of just extra stuff for growing stuff. Welcome back to the ground. I have some storage space that is beyond just the inside of my room. This is the hallway directly next to it. Our school has lockers, but no one actually uses them. The seniors have never once wanted to use them, and we only have enough just for the senior class. So they just put it next to my room, and at some point I decided to start using it for storage. So inside of each of these 4 lockers is actually a really awesome gardening kit. So these are like absolutely neat. Each of these is like a folding seat that you can set on the ground and take a sit on when you're gardening outside. They come with the basic tools, and they also hold a 1-gallon watering can with a long head that my students can have. There are 4 of these because I have 4 tables in my classroom. That's kind of a theme with how I engineer things, is there's 1 thing per group, 1 kit per group, 1 bag per group. That just works out best to keep things working consistently. And then just outside near the student parking lot, we have a recent addition in the form of 4 4-foot by 2-foot by 1-foot grow beds that me and the students recently put in, and that's where we'll be doing a lot of our experiments during the springtime. So at this point, you'll probably have noticed that there's a bit of a theme to like how my room is built. I teach science through a very practical sort of engineering lens. It's all about building something, whether it be with tools or machines or growing something to then actually do something with it. My classroom is incredibly hands-on, and I'm afforded that freedom precisely because I teach in an alternative school. If I taught in a traditional setting, I couldn't teach environmental science through a lens of engineering. I would have to teach it on paper for the most part, and maybe some going outside activities. But my school building is mostly a concrete wasteland, so we have to be able to do things here with what we have, which is why I have such a big focus on tools. I have lots of tools in the room, and I want students to understand that tools aren't good or bad, it's how you use them. I want them to get familiar with the idea of building and repairing things on their own. It is entirely a fact that I make a trade-off. My students get less rigorous scientific content knowledge, but more rigorous engineering skills. So I make that trade-off. Like, my students don't know in environmental science, we don't focus on the difference between the light-dependent and light-independent reactions of photosynthesis. We just don't hit those in this class. Instead, the kids learn about local native methodologies for growing food sustainably. We learn about the history of how sustainability works and why things are the way they are right now and what the solutions are to real issues surrounding climate change. That's what we focus on instead. We focus on real skills that can be taken into the world. And some might argue that that is an inappropriate trade-off, and you'll just have to fight me on it. I think it's more important than just knowing facts that a person could Google if they had to. If you wanted to summarize it, my classroom is a lot less about listening and a lot more about doing. It's a place for practice. It's a maker space by nature.
Hello. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, be sure to like it and get subscribed if you aren't already. If you are interested in videos talking about education and my experiences as a teacher, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. I'd be totally interested in making some videos about some of the cooler labs and projects that I've designed over the years. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day. Goodbye.